What if I told you there's an approach to your finances that doesn't necessarily sacrifice your happiness for years? It all starts with understanding what we humans really need. Life can be scary. Physical, financial, and emotional storms come and go. So we all want security and protection from those crashing waves, right? For me, money has always been part of that security. In 2003, I began my adult life by becoming a full-time real estate investor. To save money, I lived back at home with my parents in Noonan, Georgia for the first year. The second year, I lived in the spare bedroom of a friend's house in Clemson, South Carolina. Then, the next few years, I did something called house hacking by at first renting spare bedrooms in my house and then buying a small apartment building and renting the apartments next door to me, all to reduce my housing cost. Each day for breakfast, I ate oatmeal. For lunch, I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, both of which I actually still eat today and enjoy. And for dinner, I usually ate 25-cent ramen noodles. That I don't eat so much anymore. I saved every penny possible because fear always motivated me. Fear of financial survival, fear of failure, fear of humiliation, fear of not being good enough. Money seemed like a security blanket against those fears. Psychologist Abraham Maslow said these base kinds of fear are natural. In fact, we have a hierarchy of needs that all must be met in order to live a healthy, fulfilling life. First priorities in life are the physical needs for things like food, water, warmth, and rest. Then very close after these physical needs, we need emotional and intellectual safety. Until these basic needs are met, it's difficult to focus on anything else. But Maslow also said that life would be incomplete if you stopped there. Beyond basic security, we also need friendship, belonging, respect, and status. And each of us needs something even deeper to become actually what we could be potentially. This need he called self-actualization. When I really think about it, at 23 years old, I became a real estate investor, not just for physical security. I was fortunate that I had family and friends to fall back on in a worst-case scenario. I knew I wouldn't go hungry. So even though I considered other more conventional careers, like I took the test to enter medical school and I had job opportunities on Wall Street, I knew deep down that neither of those paths were the right paths for me. I wanted to take a chance. So instead of being afraid of survival, I was most afraid of trading away my soul for security and comfort. I was afraid of dying without ever having lived. I was feeling Maslow's need to self-actualize. But to fulfill that need, I actually had to take risks. I had to listen to that quiet, nagging voice that says, "You're not doing enough. You're not being enough." Helen Keller said that life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. This voice in my head was the call to adventure, and answering that call took me completely out of my comfort zone. It did not feel secure. But when it comes to self-actualization, to the path of adventure, excitement, not security, is the sure sign that you're heading in the right direction. So here's the main takeaway. You don't have to put the best part of your life on hold in the name of security. You can work on financial security, and you can even pursue financial independence so that someday you don't have to work for money. But, and here's a big but, while you do that, for maybe the next 5, 10, or maybe even 20 years of your life, you can also pursue a life that makes you excited to get out of bed each morning. Now, I certainly don't have it all figured out. This is always a work in progress, but I do want to share 3 recommendations that I used to try to strike this delicate balance as I was achieving financial security and growing towards financial independence. My first recommendation is to put your own financial oxygen mask on first. Remember Maslow's hierarchy that on those first 2 levels, your physiological needs and your safety needs are the most important. It's hard to get excited or live with purpose when you can't put food on the table. So for these, financial security matters a lot. This is really the same as that airplane safety message you always hear. Put your own oxygen mask on first. You need to survive financially before you can do other meaningful things in life and before you can help other people. So here are a few practical ways to gain that basic financial security of those first levels. The first is to prioritize earning money. Money will pay for food, it'll pay for healthcare, shelter, childcare, and other resources you need for a base level of life satisfaction. Sometimes this means changing careers to a job that pays you better. Other times it means working a side hustle so that you can earn more money in your free time. The second thing you can do is to build an emergency fund of cash in the bank. Start with something like $1,000. Then expand that to 3 months or 6 months of whatever your family's overhead is, and keep that somewhere safe in a savings account that you don't touch. The third thing you can do is to build a habit of saving and investing your extra money. In other words, pay yourself first. Set aside these savings before you spend any other money on your normal expenses. If you're new to this saving, start small with maybe 1 or 2% of whatever you earn and then set that aside up front. I promise you won't miss it. Then you can live off the rest. Over time, grow your savings rate from that 1 or 2% to 10% of your income and eventually to 25 or maybe even 50% or more. If you have a spouse or a partner, try to live on one paycheck and then save the other. How to invest that money once you've saved it and how to do that wisely is a whole nother topic, which you'll learn a lot of here on this channel if you watch every week. As you grow this foundation of financial security, you can eventually have enough income and wealth that your investments pay for your basic needs and more. This is where you have your rental properties, for example, pay you enough income that you don't have to go work a job to pay the bills. That's called financial independence, and it's also a primary topic of this channel. But if you feel like you're a long way from reaching that point, the pinnacle of the mountain, and you're still at the bottom of the financial mountain, don't worry. That's what I want to talk about next. My recommendation number 2 is to invest in your most important relationships now. Don't wait. Remember that Maslow's level number 3 was a need for love and belonging, and that's all about relationships and community. The Beatles had a song called "Can't Buy Me Love." They knew back in the 60s that the people we love don't just want money or material items from us, but instead they need regular investments of our time and our attention. The gift of our presence, physically and mentally, is much more valuable than anything money can buy. Now, I have to admit, this has often been a hard one for me personally. The part of me that seeks security and likes to stay busy with work projects is hard to turn off. Even when I'm physically present, it's easy to not be mentally present. So one of the daily habits I'm working on constantly is creating my own self-imposed deadlines. At 5:30 or at latest 6, it's time to shut down work projects and focus on family. Or if my kids have activities that start earlier than that, it'll be earlier. And beyond this daily time, I also like to schedule time with my wife, my kids, my parents, and other important friends. And schedule is the key word. Actually putting it in your calendar like you would a doctor's appointment, something that you can't skip, that other things need to work around. For example, each Wednesday morning, my wife and I schedule a date. And during the date, we have exercise, we go to breakfast together, have a good conversation, and it's just a ritual that we both come to cherish in the middle of our week. Now, of course, you're going to have to find ways to do it that fit into your life and with your own personal relationships, but I do have a recommendation that to make these habits stick, track them each week just like you would any other goal. So for example, with me, if I shut down well at the end of the day like I wanted to, I check that off. I have a little just checklist on my daily planner. However you choose to do it, deliberately investing in your relationships can produce the best returns you'll ever make. And that brings me to my third recommendation, which is to test a retirement lifestyle before you actually get there. The motto of this channel is to do what matters. This means spending your time on things that are important to you, whether that's being with family, traveling, working on a new hobby, a new side business, or maybe volunteering with a cause that's important to you. But here's the practical problem that I don't have to remind you of. You're busy. As you work a job and as you try to build financial security and make these kind of sacrifices, you seem to be sometimes in a rat race every day and every week. That's normal. I've been there as well. So my recommendation is to find ways to press pause on life, even while you're working and while you're building that financial security. In 2009, my wife and I took a 4-month sabbatical trip to Spain and South America. I learned to speak Spanish while we lived with a family in Peru, and we had amazing experiences doing things like hiking to Machu Picchu and hiking all over Patagonia down in Chile and Argentina. But here's the thing. We were not fully financially independent yet. My wife negotiated unpaid time off from her teaching job at a community college. And then we saved up money and I was able to get people to cover for me in my real estate business while I was away. So we tested retirement before we retired. And it was one of the best experiences of my life and has led to even more mini retirements just like that since then. This pause allows you to test out doing those things that matter to you on a very small scale so that you can experience it now, so that you can experience some of those fruits of the retirement that so many people look forward to, but you can do it without waiting until later in life. For example, if you have a sports hobby like playing golf, or for me, it's playing basketball, build that in now in very small amounts of time and do that each week or do it each month or really just as often as it makes sense for you right now. But don't miss it. Plug that into your schedule. And if you have a cause that's important to you, volunteer now. Find a way to carve out some time and to contribute. If you enjoy travel, start building in small mini retirements, sort of like sabbaticals. It could start off as a week or 2 weeks, but eventually try to expand it to be even longer. And that's the main point of this recommendation. Whether you can carve out 1 hour or several months, do what matters to you now, even if only a little bit, so that you can maintain the excitement and the motivation that got you started on this in the first place. This is that call to adventure that we talked about earlier. And as your financial security and your independence grows, as you gain more control over your time, then you can increase the amount of time that you have to dedicate to these important activities. And if you're like me, taking this approach will make the transition that you eventually have where you're working for money and then transitioning to more of a financial independence lifestyle where your investments are paying for your lifestyle, it'll make that transition almost seamless. You won't have to wake up like some people do one day and say, what do I do with my life or what do I do with my time now? So if you want inspiration about how this lifestyle of financial independence could look for you, please check out my FIRE, this Financial Independence Retire Early playlist. I have an interview with Mr. Money Mustache, and I have other videos that talk about how to both build wealth and also live the life that you've always dreamed of. The link is in the video description, and I also have it somewhere on the screen here up above. See you in the next video.